Green because she's so kooky, because she takes these wild stances, but also because she understands how right-wing internet culture works. She has a fundraising base far beyond her district. So she's empowered by crazies just like her all over the country. It is absolutely horrifying. Well, we are out of time. Yasmin, I had a great time doing the show with you, filling in for John today. Where can people follow you and find more of your work?
Yeah, so you can find all my work on Rebel HQ. I also have my podcast, Modern Context, and you can follow me on Instagram at YazK with 5 Z's, YAZZZZZK. There you go.
Do not forget any of the Z's. I'm Jordan Yule. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe out there. Stay sane out there.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed, and for Dr. Rashad Ritchie, we're treated to a special guest co-host today, Wosny Lambre, once again joining us. I don't know why I did that rowing motion.
I think
Why did I do that? I think it's
you're
just
trying
like,
to
it's
pull the
magic.
audience in. I think you're just
That
bringing
part.
them into the show.
That part. We have good banter. We agree on some things. And you challenge me. I challenge you. We're both better for it. And I think people like that. They like a little push pull. Don't you
It's
think?
it's a partnership, and I think people
Yeah.
love to see collaboration, that push
Right.
and pull, that yin and yang, if you
Yes.
will. I think people appreciate that kind of dynamic.
Well, I appreciate the expensive artwork in the background anytime we go to your shop these days. That's expensive stuff. Okay, well, we got to get serious because there's this one. I thought in America, when you proved yourself, uh, things started looking up for you. When you show a lack of judgment, I don't know how you keep getting the same positions. We're talking about Tamir Rice's killer. He's resigned from another police department amid outrage. Take a look at this. So here you see what is a painful reminder of what happened to 12-year-old Tamir Rice. 1.8 seconds. That's all it took for Officer Timothy Lohman to shoot this teenager dead, Cleveland, Ohio. Nothing to do with protocol, nothing to do with training. This was bad policing that resulted in the death, his family would say murder, of a 12-year-old innocent boy. You know, if we have laws that say 12-year-olds can't be 12-year-olds and they can't make one mistake or they're dead, that would be one thing. Be pretty cool. That's not how it's supposed to work here. I'll tell you more about this ex-officer. Timothy Lohman, the ex-Cleveland officer who shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice in 2014, has now resigned from the White Sulphur Police Force in West Virginia following public outrage. Lohman had been hired to work as a probationary police officer and an at-will employee for the city. White Sulphur Springs is about 370 miles from Cleveland, has a population of roughly 2,220. Why do you have to keep doing this job? I would think you'd be so traumatized. But you just insist on policing others after this. Lohman was not charged in connection to the shooting of Rice and was cleared by a grand jury. However, he lost his job with the Cleveland Division of Police for lying on his application. Should have lost more than that. I think that's criminal. In certain jobs, shouldn't it be criminal to lie on your application? You weren't fit for this. It's the second time Lohman has resigned from a police department since he left Cleveland in 2022. Lohman was hired as the one and only officer for Tioga, small borough in Pennsylvania with a population of around 700 people. However, Lohman withdrew his application shortly after his hiring drew backlash, his attorney Henry Hilo said at the time. 2018, he withdrew a prior application to become a part-time police officer in Bel Air, Ohio. It's not far from Cleveland. The department's police chief said following protests from Tamir's mother and others. Why were you so gung-ho, no pun intended, on hiring him in the first place? Best and brightest. I mean, the one job had one officer out of everyone. You're the guy? Come on. Come on. So let's bring you up to date now. Mayor Kathy Glover said in a statement to NBC News on Monday announcing his resignation. As of July 1, 2024, Timothy Lohman has resigned his position and is no longer an employee with the city, she said, adding that because it was a personnel matter, she would have no further comment. Thanks, Mayor. Glover did not immediately return a request for comment about when Lohman was hired and whether she had signed off on it. Her statement said Lohman had been hired at the request and recommendation of the chief of police. He ought to go too. I don't know why you're racing around it. He doesn't have to be a police officer. You know, that's not his right. Best and the brightest. Earlier Monday, before the mayor's announcement, White Sulphur Springs City Council member Thomas Taylor confirmed Lohman's hiring to NBC News. It was first reported by the Real WV, which is a nonprofit multimedia organization. Taylor said in an interview that only the police chief and the mayor had the power to hire Lohman, and that the city council had no authority over personnel issues and was not involved in his hiring. NBC News with the details. That should change. Maybe more people need to be involved. From what I understand, the chief of police hired him, Taylor said. He said the decision had spurred backlash on social media, and he anticipated the matter would be raised at the next city council meeting, which is scheduled to take place next Monday. Reached by phone Monday morning, Chief D.S. Tebert said he was not at liberty to speak about Lohman, but said he may be at a later time. He did not return requests for comment after Lohman's resignation was announced. Tebert confirmed to Cleveland.com that he hired Lohman. He said that he spent a year or so looking into Lohman's background, which included watching videos and reading about Tamir's killing. That just made you say, Chief, that we gotta have him. We gotta have this guy. Yeah. Okay. Just as a person, I looked at the whole situation. Tebert told the outlet, did a background check. I researched everything. Just a sad situation. Did you talk to Tamir Rice's mother? Did you talk to ex-colleagues? Did you talk to the Cleveland mayor at the time, city council, anyone? You said you did a background check. Who'd you speak to, Chief? Sad situation. Does any police officer in the world stand a chance when they're involved in a shooting? Do they deserve to never work again as a police officer? Sometimes. That's me. Or is it just this shooting? Well, it might not just be this shooting, Chief, but it is this shooting. Lack of judgment at best. 1.8 seconds. You roll up next to a would-be killer, putting yourself, your fellow officer in the cruiser in danger, and you kill a kid. I don't think that's the best judgment. That's just me. Oh, no, it's not just me, is it? November 22nd, 2014, in Cleveland, Rice was playing with a pellet gun outside a recreation center when he was shot and killed by Lohman. Seconds after Lohman and his partner, a veteran training officer, Frank Garmbach, arrived in response to a call about someone pointing a gun at people. 911 caller had mentioned that it was likely a juvenile and the gun was probably fake, but you want to leave that part out of the narrative each time. That's why at the top of this segment, I said, if we're a country that says 12-year-olds have to be perfect, 12-year-olds cannot make a mistake, or they must be shot dead in 1.8 seconds, that's one thing. But that's not the way it's supposed to work. Unless you're black and brown. The gun was probably fake, the caller said. But this was not relayed to the officers. Well, but you still don't have to pull up to a gunman, a would-be killer, do you? Pull up right next to a would-be killer? What kind of nonsense is that? Maybe assess the situation. After the shooting, both men stated that Lohman had given Tamir multiple commands to show his hands before the shooting. Well, I told you it was 1.8 seconds, so I don't know about that. Can somebody time it and say it? 1.8 seconds. A confused boy. Shooting sparked months of protests over police treatment of Black people. State grand jury decided not to indict Lohman or Garmbach. In May 2017, about 3 years after he killed Tamir, Lohman was fired by the Cleveland Police Department, which said his 2013 application contained inaccuracies. Might want to check him out on the front end. December 2020, the Justice Department announced that it would not bring federal criminal charges against Lohman and Garmbach, saying the quality of the video of the shooting was too poor for prosecutors to conclusively establish what happened. So he just gets to be free and clear. Go work again as an officer. Tebert told Cleveland.com he met Lohman through friends in the military. Well, we see how this works. And that he did not believe Lohman had done anything wrong. What crime was he convicted of? Nice try. Officers rarely are convicted. Chief. I got questions about whether the chief should be there at this point. Tebert said, I just want everyone to be fair about this whole thing. So do we. If I thought he had something If I thought he had done something illegal or wrong in any way, I wouldn't have hired him. Wrong in any way? I told you 1.8 seconds. Would you pull up next to a would-be killer like that? 1.8 seconds? I don't even know if Navy SEALs do that. We had the scenario when they killed Osama bin Laden. It was a firefight, went on for a little bit now. 1.8 seconds? Tubert also expressed surprise that the hiring had drawn attention. Now, I really have to question this, Chief. You got to stop this, okay? You thought it wouldn't draw attention? Questioning the judgment of the chief. Hello, Sulphur, which is a very strange name for a place. White sulfur? I know what I think of. I think of sulfur. I know there are two sides to every story, but people just aren't looking at what happened, Tubert said. It's a sad, sad thing that young man lost his life. I take nothing away from that. Subodh Chandra, one of the attorneys who represented the estate of Tamir Rice and his family, said Lohman should never again be entrusted with a badge and gun, and questioned why he insists on working as a police officer. Timothy Lohman should be radioactive to any sensible member of law enforcement or any community. This sweet-faced then boy, Tamir, would have turned 22 this year. Every time I see his photo, the glimmer in his eye, that sweet smile, his mother's pain. Why? Here's the thing. I wasn't there, Wos, neither were you. But why are they fighting so hard for this piss poor? He was a piss poor cop. Now, I'm sorry. He wasn't on the force very long. He was a terrible cop. I wish people would fight so hard for 12-year-olds like Tamir. It's a privilege. It's a privilege, not a right to be a police officer. But there's always a friend to say, but well, things happen. What if that was your kid? What if you were white? Oh, Sharon, stop making everything about race. I would love to, America. I would love to. What say you, Wos? Should this continue to follow ex-officer Lohman, who, by the way, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe if it wouldn't if he didn't keep traveling the country in a camper or something, staking out, one officer police force is saying, can I get a job? I'll do everything. Should this continue to follow him? Is it just a tragedy? Am I making too much of it?
No, I don't think you're making too much of it. I think this guy actually committed a crime in Cleveland, Ohio, and he should have been prosecuted for it. And it's a miscarriage of justice that he wasn't. At the same time, I'm not naive about how police departments work. Even if they're in completely different jurisdictions, there is a bit of a fraternity and brotherhood factor to being a cop. And I'm not surprised that people want to go out of their way to try to help a guy who they see as a fellow cop who got jobbed. They're like, he wasn't convicted of a crime. He shouldn't have been out of a job. And so we should go out and help him. Now, if these people had any type of, I don't know, finesse to them, they'd be like, look, we're giving the guy a desk job. He's not on the street. He's not going to be in a position to make the kinds of mistakes and horrific crimes if you're from where we stand. And we want to give this guy a job. If he's going to be out in society, we think that the guy should work. He should be able to earn a living if he's not going to be locked up. Right. But no, the chief is saying he's never done anything wrong and he should be fine. But and to your last question, Sharon, why does he keep doing this? Well, I mean, it's not hard to understand. Being a cop is a pretty good freaking job. You get vacation pay, you get paternity and maternity leave. Most importantly, you have a union job and you get a pension. You actually get a nest egg. There's absolutely no chance in hell that you or I will go into another job in our lives and receive a pension for it. And the fact that top jobs have that, that's why he's chasing it. He works his 20 years, he gets to retire, you know what I mean? Get his little bennies, have a nice little life. Unfortunately, that's the kind of life that Tamir Rice will never see because of the misdeeds of this cop. But none of this really surprises me that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, and you see, one of the things I love about you is you're not naive. You're a nice guy though. I take issue with two words of what you said there. A bit. It's not a bit of a fraternity. It's not a bit of a brotherhood. This dang blue wall extends throughout the world. It's just crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I just wish these same cops that wanted to make sure he's not in jail, he should have a job and earn a living. I agree. You agree with that, Wills. But if only they agreed with other people. When we did this show yesterday, and they had a huge issue with a man who had been wrongly convicted and spent like 8 years in prison. They kept stopping him. He was out just trying to be with his son. And there's another jurisdiction, but they're all the same. They're all the same. There's common things that happen throughout all of them. And I agree with you. And the chief's little statement about he didn't get convicted. Duh. Because one of the other things that you didn't list about pension, all this stuff, maternity leave, and blah, blah, blah. They also get to do things that are terribly wrong, that are criminal in many instances, and they're protected. They almost never, if you looked at the stats and lumped them all in there, the chances, it might be, and this is just speculation on my part, it might be easier to get hit by lightning than to be a cop and be charged with a crime. We had stories on recent times on Indisputable about the New York Police Department. Even when the board, the police board recommended, look, this is criminal, how they beat up this woman, an innocent person here, should be charged with a crime. Police commissioner overrides. I mean, that's how it works. And I also think that Mr. Lohman doesn't just want a police job because it's all he's ever known. Remember, I told you, he wasn't on the force very long before he killed that teenager. I think there's a certain thing about this policing institution that attracts a certain type, too often, where they just love policing people. Maybe they played cops and robbers as kids, or G.I. Joe, or what are those little plastic things? You guys played with those? Why? I mean, my dolls had hair and other things. I could change their outfits. These little green men, why did that excite certain people so much that they would pull up and in 1.8 seconds shoot a teenager who the 911 caller said likely had a fake gun? If it were me and I just wanted to preserve my life, so that I could get back to my family that night as an officer, I probably would want to know more from dispatch. Whoa, that's a hell of a call. A guy pointing a gun at people. This is a major situation. Back up. Or is it back up? I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, obviously I echo all of the points that you just made. I don't know what these people are supposed to do, right? Like, I don't feel any sympathy for this guy. Obviously, this guy's gotten off scot-free with the murder of a child. But I don't know what these people who have been exonerated of doing something this heinous are actually supposed to go out and do. I mean, that's what they would say, Sharon. That's not my words. That's what under the court of law, they've been exonerated. I don't know what this guy's supposed to do. Maybe he should take up knitting or something. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you, folks like Jason Blair, I hate even raising his name. Remember I believe he was with, one of the major newspapers. A prolific liar. He made up stories. He got caught. He was excommunicated from the journalism community. Jason Blair is now a life coach in Ashburn, Virginia. He's not writing for the Post, the Times, Vanity Fair. You're out of here, because he didn't interview the man on the street. He made up some comments. Isn't there an NFL sideline reporter, Clarissa Thompson, who's doing the same thing? She lied about the NFL coaches. I mean, she wasn't saying much, wasn't getting much anyway. Both teams played hard, and you had to make up a lie about that. I mean, you can't even get a, if it were me, I'm going to put the, and if he just says, get out of here, that's what I report. He said, get out of here. But she made it up. She's still there and chastising the rest of us. All I'm saying is, you don't need to do this job. And for any chief out there, and every time I say the name white sulfur, don't you want to just hold your nose? I do. I don't know why you would name that place that, but that's not the crux of the matter. Here's what it is: white privilege, brotherhood, fraternity, and be damned with a dead black kid. Be damned with how his mother feels about it. Be damned how we feel about it. I'll move on, and sadly, it's not going to get much better, Woes. We're going to stick with police. In this case, Austin, a cop caught assaulting his 2-year-old son on security camera. For KVUE News, an investigation into Officer Cameron Caldwell, the Austin Police Department, APD, continues. Its court documents reveal what led to his arrest. Cedar Park Police stated Caldwell turned himself into the Williamson County Jail following an incident at his Cedar Park home. Sounds like there was more than an incident. APD said it is aware of the criminal investigation involving Caldwell and is cooperating with Cedar Park Police. Per standard protocol, APD said it has placed Caldwell on restricted duty and has initiated an administrative investigation into the matter. Court documents obtained by KVUE reveal authorities were called out to Caldwell's home on Monada Trail, June 17th, for reports of child abuse. The mother of Caldwell's 2 children told officers she had video of him abusing their children, including one video of great concern. The mother then provided police with 5 videos from a Nest camera set up inside the children's bedroom. One video allegedly showed Caldwell's 2-year-old son trying to shield himself from his father before being picked up and violently struck in the buttocks. Caldwell allegedly hit his son 8 times before dropping him to the ground. Video shows Caldwell's son crying hysterically, trying to crawl away before Caldwell picks him up and slams him on the mattress. Caldwell then hits his son in the face 3 times before covering him with a blanket, according to court documents. Restrictive duty. During an interview with Caldwell's 4-year-old son, the boy told investigators his dad threw a monster truck at his back. He also allegedly said he gets hit a lot when he gets in trouble and is forced to do push-ups by Caldwell. 4-year-old accused Caldwell of slapping him in the face on the left side of his cheek. August 2016. Caldwell was suspended 45 days after he pepper sprayed a handcuffed man, Chicago native Tyrone Wilson, in the face during South by Southwest. Video showed Wilson, who was arrested on a misdemeanor charge of resisting arrest in the back of a police wagon when Caldwell opened the door and told him to stop kicking it. We don't know. We've seen that tactic before. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Moments later, the 2 men had another exchange during which Caldwell used pepper spray on Wilson. Meanwhile, per the Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago police officer Jose Moreno faces dismissal for allegedly attacking his pregnant girlfriend and abusing her. The Civilian Office of Police Accountability recommended his firing earlier this year, stating that his history of domestic violence should not be tolerated. And that's a good word. It's being tolerated. A history. These are the people you want to send out to police the rest of us. Higher standard, anyone? Most egregiously, he strangled the woman, causing her airway to be obstructed, and physically abused her while pregnant. Both acts indicating of escalating lethality. I can't even say the word. He was trying to kill her, or at least she thought she was going to die. Copa said in the report dated February 26th. The officer minimized his conduct and did not take accountability for his actions. Jail anyone? Charges anyone? Prosecutor, anyone? Oh, that's right. Everyone's like kind of in bed with each other, so it's a little hard to prosecute your friends. I depend on them to give me evidence and to go get the bad guys the way I tell them to do it. December 2021, the woman told Chicago police that Moreno had choked her and kicked her in the ribs that October, according to COPA. She also recalled another incident in which he allegedly menaced her with a gun while he was holding one of their children. Chicago Sun-Times with the reporting here. She filed an emergency order of protection the next day. Moreno was arrested and charged in January 2022. Okay, about a month later. So they did something. Court records show the protection order has since been vacated, and the misdemeanor battery case was dropped within months. Am I confusing things here, or did I say that he choked her with lethal force, kept escalating? She said what happened. Misdemeanor? Kicked her in the ribs, pregnant, held a gun. Was it his police service weapon? I don't know. Holding one of her children at the time. Vacated within months. Dropped. Moreno remains on active duty. I have to read the rest. The team put this together. They want you to know everything. I'm going to try to get through this. He earns $97,926 annually. That's according to city records. A police spokesman said he's detailed to the alternative response section, a unit staffed by cops with disciplinary issues and those not medically cleared for full duty. We got to find a place for them and pay them $100,000, even when they're accused of trying to kill the public. That's what the mother of his children would say. He tried to kill me. COPA opened its investigation after the woman reported the officer to police, and she later detailed a pattern of abusive behavior that had allegedly stretched for years. I believe you. They do too. They just didn't want to do anything about it. The woman said Moreno locked her out of their home in the spring of 2021 when she was pregnant and came outside holding a gun with one hand and their child in the other. She also reported that the officer punched her in the back around the same time. We'll just put him in this unit over here where, he'll still get his money because, we don't want to take his money. And he's still officially a cop. Alternative response? July 2021, just 4 days after she gave birth, she said Moreno tormented her and kicked her out of the home. I'm going to make your life a living hell until you get out of here, he allegedly said. At one point, he recorded her crying with one of their kids present as she held a knife, according to the report. She told him she grabbed the weapon because you're telling me to kill myself, and I'm tired of all this S. Following month, Moreno attacked her when she tried to record another fight, COPA said. At one point, he punched her in the wrist and thigh while trying to get her phone. During the incident that October that led to his arrest, the couple started arguing and the officer choked her. She said it lasted approximately 5 seconds and she could not breathe. Moreno then pushed her to the floor, kicked her near her rib cage, according to the oversight agency. He eventually took her keys, packed her bags, and told her to leave. But she later returned for her children. Among others, sustained allegations, they sustained this. COPA found the officer punched the woman while she was pregnant, choked her, and kicked her. But we got to find a place for him. Officers are under a lot of stress. It's a very dangerous job. If you're a girlfriend in this case, it's real dangerous. If you're the mother of someone's child or wife, real dangerous. The Sun-Times notes it wasn't immediately known whether police Superintendent Larry Snelling agreed with the finding. Who gives a if Larry Snelling agreed? Who cares? They investigated it. They sustained this. Whoa, make it make sense. What does an officer with a badge, a gun, protection, ability to kill, police, and torment and abuse members of the public without repercussion? What does it take for them to be out of here like you or I would be in a regular job?
If I'm going to take the most cynical stance that the police would say play devil's advocate, if you will, they would say that they would say, look, one, this is what we hear all the time from these people. It's a tough job. It's a scary job. They see the worst of society on a day-to-day, like they're confronting the worst of situations on a day-to-day basis. It's so freaking hard. And because of that fact, the powers that be feel like their officers, their foot soldiers, if you will, have to feel empowered. They have to feel like that they can take certain measures and the brass and management will quote unquote have their back. These people will say they can't have officers out there acting timid or, behaving with some level of restraint, because if they did, they can't perform the job. And that's why they fight for them tooth and nail to not be fired, even after the most egregious, of crimes and accusations like this, like beating up your wife or your girlfriend or the mother of your children is absolutely insane. Strangling them to the point of, suffocation and even death, as you mentioned, but abusing children, like the idea that I thought that was the worst that we could do. These are the most vulnerable people of our population, a 2-year-old child. That doesn't rise to the level of, hey man, I don't think you should be associated with our organization anymore. It just tells you how they feel. They feel like their officers should be empowered to do whatever they want out in the public.
Yeah, and the argument you laid out sounds perfectly reasonable if you're Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, and you've just declared the United States president a king, a monarch. You don't want to chill his power to act. Even when he commits a crime, well, he can't really do anything about it. That's how it feels. You're charged with protecting. I want them to take that protect and serve off of the vehicles. I demand it, okay? Whoever has that trademark, can you pull it? I don't want the police using it anymore, because this does not sound like protect and serve. It sounds like we are the kingmakers and we decide what to do to you. And the only reason that guy was arrested was because that smart mama bear had that Nest camera, so they couldn't make that go away. But it'll go away eventually. Charges drop. This is indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed, alongside my good friend Wosny Lambre, extraordinarily gifted commentator. And even though we disagree about Caitlin Clark and some things associated with her WNBA career, we see eye to eye on a lot more, and we enjoy sparring. Dr. Ritchie said, you guys do what you want. I'm off for today. I'll be back soon. But he allows us to keep it real. Much more indisputable when we come right back.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
Been honest with him, like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it, but instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
This is Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Doc has the day off. Wosny Lambre is here with us today as our special guest co-host. Always a treat when Wos is in the house. Let's get to some of your comments. That was a hell of a first block. Okay, a hell of a first several segments. TYT members first, socialized whole, AKA bottom dragon. I appreciate everything about the two of you. Love you, Sharon and Wos. Wow, that warms my heart. Wos?
Yes.
Okay, he wasn't. They said they love you. I understand.
Oh, I
you
love
were
them
distracted.
back.
He's
I love
preparing
them
for the
back. I'm
next
just
segment.
catching up on
Or
stuff.
maybe people say I love you all the time and you're tired of hearing it. I don't know.
Never.
I
I'm never
appreciate it.
tired of it. Not from the audience and certainly not from
Okay.
you, Sharon.
Well, it seemed like you weren't paying attention. I'm used to that from men, though. Let's get to 36 Chambers Dragon, who says, Big Wos and Sharon, always a great duo. Happy Tuesday, TYT fan. Happy Tuesday, 36. Appreciate you. About Tamir Rice's killer resigning from yet another police department. He's getting these jobs. So instead of firing him, they just decided to move him around and hoping it would all just go away. There was a church that did that once. They just kept moving the priest around. Remember that? How'd that work out? Congratulations, officer. You're no better than a Catholic priest. Look. Well, behavior like this makes people say things and believe very cynically. So, Texas and Chicago cops busted for abusing families. Adrian as Alicia. Apologize, Adrian. I haven't been able to have children, been trying for years. That's so shameful. These monsters get such an enormous blessing and they abuse them. This world sucks. I'm afraid it does for some children, doesn't it, Adrian? One more for you. YouTube, Tamir Rice's killer resigns. Tanya Ladmiral, killing an innocent child is wrong, no matter how you look at it. That Timothy needs to find a new profession. He should not be in law enforcement. I think you're right. Can we give you one more, Dro Mario? If I get fired from DoorDash, I can't go over to Uber Eats like nothing happened. And here we're talking about a life lost. We'll move on. There's a lot of hatred in the world because if the powers that be keep us divided and hostile towards each other, well, they can pick our pockets and take even more power, seize even more power. I get it. A lot of you get it. There's a few goofballs. There's some goofballs running around throughout the world who still don't get it, focusing, spewing their hate on others. Perhaps because they don't like what they see in the mirror. I honestly don't care what the reason is. It's goofball behavior. And of course, there's another name for it that we've all come to know and cannot get rid of, like an STD. Okay, there's some STDs folks can't get rid of. This is akin to that. Why can't we get rid of this? Not penicillin, nothing, won't go away. I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Are you not ashamed of yourself? You're with the world's most invasive species. You're the world's most irresponsible breeders. You're in the whitest country possible.
What do you mean? Everything?
Yes. You're a biological weapon in this country. Hey, Pajit. Pajit, you're a biological weapon in this country. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're a white woman. What are you going to do? Mix your genetics up with the skin?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean? There's 1.3 billion of those Pajits.
What are you talking about me like that?
There's 1.3 billion Pajits.
Just leave us, okay?
This is the whitest country on earth.
Leave us.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Leave us. Okay?
Be ashamed of yourself.
What are you doing?
Be ashamed. Look at you.
What are you doing?
Why don't you have some more plastic?
How proud. Male Karen spews hatred at interracial couple in Poland. I've heard about some things in Poland and how it goes over there sometimes, but it's not just Poland, is it? Other places. Racist American male Karen in Poland goes on a racist rant after seeing an interracial couple minding their own business. Minding their own business. Thankfully, though, an anti-Karen intervened. Okay? And that's exactly what we need. We need more anti-Karens to spread throughout the globe. In this case, this anti-Karen was dispatched to this area, or happened to be there, just happened to be there, Woes, and said, hey, what are you talking about? What's going on here? I think that you have to confront, Woes, these Karens. They're sick, okay? And I'm not saying that that's an excuse for the hatred they spew, but if we don't confront them, beat them back, okay? We have to do something, okay? You find a rodent, maybe you set a trap. I don't want to kill living things, but you can't come in the house, little mouse. I have to set a trap and then call my neighbor to come get it out. I don't know what else to do with these people. If that's you in that instance, do you turn and walk away? Do you confront it? Do you laugh at it? What do you do?
Yeah, it looks like they're in some type of Home Depot or Lowe's type of situation, or at least Poland's version of it. It's bad enough that they've got to make home improvements and they're shopping on their time off, but to be harassed by a eugenicist, racist, Nazi dude in the process is quite sad. I don't know. I don't know. Like, would the answer really be to smack this guy up and beat him up? And like
clean up aisle 6. Then it's a cleanup. It's a cleanup at Home Depot.
Like,
and I want the workers to just come over and just sweep it up.
I don't know that that's the answer. And I will say, even here in the States, I don't know if you've ever seen these videos of these Black Israelites when they see Black guys or Black women with people of other races, they heckle them all the same. Out here, we just tend to ignore those people and look at them as kooks, right? Like this idea that like, bro, you're gonna lecture me about, finding love and telling me that like it's gotta be this one drop rule to make it right. Like it's crazy. I really do think a lot of times these people sound like the most unhinged, craziest, literally Nazis in existence when they do this, like, oh, this is the race you're supposed to breed with. It's so grotesque. Just the idea of just like mentioning the quote unquote mixing of genetics as if race is some real thing that
breeding. He talks about breeding
as if it's dogs or something or horses. It's insane. It's gross. And again, I don't know that you should beat this guy up or put hands on him because he's talking about you and your girl in public. But I think you're kind of right too. Ignoring this doesn't seem to be like a good answer either.
Yeah, and they have something to say about everything. That's the issue here.
Maybe just having more sex and more babies and just outnumbering these dudes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Might be the point, because God did say we should be fruitful and multiply, Sharon.
Yeah.
So
but if I have a headache, I'm not
follow the Lord.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. But I think it starts with mind your own business. If they're not talking about race and this and that. I once had a Karen say to me, "When are you due?" I had a little pooch right there.
Oh, no.
I'm not pregnant, Karen. And they shouldn't have asked. I had a hoagie. I was back in Philly, my beloved Philly. I had a hoagie. I didn't want to waste a bit. Not your business if I have a little or if I have a lot. I'm not pregnant. Had you minded your business, we wouldn't have this awkward exchange, okay? But that's what they do. Big and small issues. I still remember that. And to this day, I don't ask anybody when they're due unless they bring it up. You see why? Now, this one, things are looking up. We had an anti-Karen in this past one, and now look at this. Things are looking up, I say, because someone's being held accountable. Update, the banker who attacked a woman at New York Pride event, charged. You're charged, buddy. Yep, you. Let's remind you of the incident.
Oh my God. That's right. Stop. You're a horrible person. Go yourself. Yeah, go yourself.
So from the very first frame of this video, we can see that something has already been happening before the recording began. As you can notice here, there's someone, at least one person on the ground and one or two people trying to help them up. We can also see that there's something all over him, and he says to one of the bystanders, "She threw all over me." And it looks like some sort of liquid, like a drink. But whatever happened before, whatever this situation was, what we see right here is him approaching this young woman who has her hands down, who is not coming at him aggressively at all, followed by him punching her directly in the face, allegedly breaking her nose.
So there's your reminder. Took a while. Millionaire banker Jonathan Kay, after he punches a woman in the face there, Brooklyn Pride. Per the Financial Times, Jonathan Kay, the former senior investment banker at Moelis, who punched a woman at a Brooklyn Pride event last month, has been arrested on assault charges. Kay, who resigned from Moelis a week ago following the incident, turned himself in to authorities Monday morning on a second and third degree assault charge, a New York City Police Department spokesperson confirmed. Financial Times notes the arrest is the latest turn for Kay, who just weeks ago was one of the most senior bankers at Moelis, AKA I'm rich. After the 10-second video clip began circulating online, Kay was initially placed on leave by Moelis before he resigned last week. In the video, Kay can be seen hitting the woman in the face at a street corner. Witnesses to the incident stated Kay allegedly unprovoked assaulted multiple women for breaking the one woman's nose, allegedly sending two other women to the ER. He was on a punching spree, punching his way through Brooklyn Pride, apparently. Wow. Financial Times previously reported that Kay, who was Jewish, had initially told 4 individuals with a Palestinian flag that they were on the wrong side. And then a scuffle ensued. Lawyer for K52 said on Monday that they had provided the New York District Attorney with another video in an effort to corroborate earlier statements that Kay had acted in self-defense. What the previously released video clip does not show is what another video and other evidence we have shared with the District Attorney does show. These agitators formed a ring at him, doused him with 2 unknown liquids, shoved him to the ground, and hurled anti-Semitic slurs at him, Kay's lawyer, Dania Perry, said in a statement. It's interesting. We're just now hearing those details. Those sound like, if true, that would be horrific, no? Just now hearing it, though, since he's been arrested. If it were me, I probably would have called the police and said, they surrounded me, they called me names, they did this, they did that. But I wasn't there. We are hopeful that the district attorney will fully and fairly consider these facts, along with the surge of anti-Semitic acts, protests, and attacks that are ravaging our city. We will aggressively fight injustice, and we will look forward to a full vindication for our client. Okay. 38-year-old woman he attacked, identified by NBC4 New York as Micah P., filed a complaint with the police after the assault. He was literally a tornado of violence, she told the station. Mike Tyson in his heyday didn't even get that title. He was the best. He was knocking people out within seconds. I never heard anybody describe Mike Tyson that way. in the ring. A banker outside of it, described as a tornado of violence. Micah told NBC New York the interaction started when Kay walked by her group of friends outside a cafe as they waited for other friends after spending a day at the Pride Festival. We heard him say, "What a bunch of useful idiots," said Micah. He got about halfway down the block and I turned around and I said, "What did you say?" He turned back around and just started rushing us. And as he's coming at us, I had a bottle of water. I just splashed it, like, get away from us, you know? Then the chaos broke out, according to Micah, who said Kay shoved multiple people in the group. One of our other friends was like, "Get off of them." He jumps up, runs after that person. They slipped out of their vest to get away, and he fell down trying to chase them down. Micah told News 4, fell face first on the concrete, scraping his ankle, jumping up. One person he shoved was like, "Are you okay?" He jumps up, shoves another person. They hurt their arm, and then he turns, and that's the video you see him clock me. Micah P. was left with a broken nose. NBC4 New York. I hear a very detailed account from Micah P. You weren't there, Wills. I wasn't there. But there's going to be a group of people who say, this is what happened. Remember, we saw him in the initial video that she had or was posted, went viral with a wet jacket. Oh, your cashmere jacket. And I wanted to know, what was that? I mean, now his lawyer says unknown substance, anti-Semitism, just like what's sweeping throughout the country. What are we supposed to do with all of this back and forth?
I want to say just a couple of things just off the top, because I remember in the first few days after the attack by Hamas in Israel on October 7th, just the outpouring of just concern and a lot of times anger that I was seeing on my social media. To the point where I didn't even realize I was friends with this many people of Jewish descent. Like, it never even dawned on me that I knew this many people that were Jewish. I was so like, wow, like, people are really upset, which, I asked a friend of mine and I was like, yo, like, this is fucked up or whatever. Like, obviously this shouldn't have happened. Excuse me, this is messed up. Sorry.
You're angry. You're
October
angry. We
7th
apologize to our viewers, but
sorry about that. This is messed up 100%, but I'm trying to get a better understanding of the response. And my buddy who is Jewish himself was like, look, you got to remember that the Holocaust is actually still in living memory. So a lot of people, their grandparents, like, experienced it. Their grandparents had whole family members and units wiped out by this Holocaust. And because the Holocaust is in living memory, like this many Jewish people dying in one day, it elicits a very strong emotion. And I was like, man, you know what? That gives me a better perspective for the reactions that people have to this. And I think like it's been pretty impassioned by a lot of people who, like, one, they have this understanding of that horrible, horrific historical event. And two, the other part of it, people being told that Israel is literally the only safe haven for Jewish people on the planet. Never mind that I live here in LA. When you go to Beverly Hills, it seems pretty safe for Jewish people. When you go to Larchmont, when you're here in the valley where I live, seems pretty reasonably safe, but that's neither here nor there. That's what people have been taught to think about Israel. So the idea that anybody would question that notion, it just sends certain people up a wall. And again, this doesn't excuse beating up, like breaking up and bloodying the noses of women who you've never met before. But I think it does give a little bit of context to the blind rage that we see from certain supporters of Israel. Like, it's just like these people really do think that Israel is this very special place, like no other place on the planet, because of the Holocaust, et cetera, et cetera. And allegedly, Jewish people can't be quote unquote safe anywhere else. Forget it, like forget the Upper West Side in New York, forget Forest Hills in Queens. Forget about Beverly Hills and Larchmont and all the places in LA where I see Jewish people just like seem pretty safe, seem to be prospering, seem to be having a good go of it. A lot of people have it in their head that Israel's the only place that Jewish people could be safe, and some people get into a freaking blind rage about it.
So anti-Semitism is real and it has never stopped. And you can't run from it and you can't hide. And it is in Beverly Hills and these other places. I happen to feel a kinship because I know what else hasn't stopped against people who look like me. But it could be, Woes, that this is exactly what this rich banker wants us to talk about. This could be exactly what he wants us to talk about. The victim didn't say anything about a Jewish person, according to her and the other witnesses. It's not heard on the video. And we'll see what was turned into the district attorney. But it's interesting. And look, if it's true, it's horrific. And the cops got to sort it out. They arrested him, though. But I think there are times anti-Semitism is real and inescapable. But there are times where it could be that the only person who allegedly heard it in this case is the rich banker now arrested. And it may be that's because it wasn't uttered. Or could be something else. I think sometimes they want us to have certain conversations to distract from what really went down. Could be that somebody was homophobic and didn't believe in pride and was sick of pride being on their block and did say useful idiots. Could be that.
And by the way, the problem for people like this gentleman who got arrested is they're trying to create a narrative where any sympathy for the Palestinian people writ large is by definition anti-Semitic, and people aren't going for it. That's just not gonna work. Sorry, because there's actual, genuine, real anti-Semitism out there, but like people displaying a sympathy for people who live under the rule of law and thumb of a nation that they have no representation under, of a government that is very powerful and oftentimes very brutal. Like, I'm sorry, like it's not gonna work.
Well, it's been going on for a long time. Both sides have their take, and maybe that's the issue. We got to figure this out. And sometimes we got to just stick with the facts at hand. On that evening in Brooklyn during Pride, much more to come. This is Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. He has the day off. Wosny Lambre joins me. I'm Sharon Reed. We're right back.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
I've been honest with him, like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it. But instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Welcome back to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Sharon Reed, Wosny, Lambre, in for Doc today. And more of your comments now. TYT member, Sina Hagaboom, about that bigoted male Karen in Poland. It's simple. That lady did it. Just go away. Just go away. AKA, we ain't got time for you, bro. We at Home Depot. I love it. I love it. About the New York City banker charged, over 9,000 says, sounds like Banker Boyd tried some meth instead of his normal designer drugs. Disclaimer, we don't know if he was on drugs. She said he was just like punching everyone. You're just a wild, violent spree. So I don't know. And I see why you said that, over 9,000. Disclaimer, we don't know. We don't know. Okay. YouTube, about the bigot male Karen, Poland, Vaughn22 says, I know he's jealous because the Indian man is attractive. He was handsome, wasn't he? Tall and handsome. I saw it. I was trying to focus. You get to focus on the job. And he's booed up. But I can recognize if someone looks good, and so can you, Vaughn. Last one, New York banker charge. FM says only took 2 months, and coming to the precinct when you get a chance, sir. That's the difference, right? If it was you, perhaps me, they're going to carry you out of there and throw you in the back of the van, okay? Because someone said something might have happened and you might have been there. That's what's going to happen to you. Okay, but yes, Mr. Millionaire Banker, you come in when you're ready. Thank you. Can we get a mugshot on him? Did he have to take one? Just asking for a friend. Okay, a Black veteran arrested for possession of a legally owned gun. It's legal. New York, Rafiq Khan, highly decorated Black U.S. Army veteran with a concealed weapons permit, was pulled over for unspecified reasons by the NYPD. It's always the unspecified reasons. And arrested for possession of his own gun, spending more than 24 hours in jail before he was informed of the charges against him. Interesting. Khan's arrest took place Sunday, November 26, 2023, after attending a small family gathering to commemorate the birthday of his mother, who had recently passed away. At some point after midnight, Khan, his cousin, and a friend stepped out of the home and into his 2022 BMW Series 3. Nice car, which had Purple Heart license plates on the front and back of the car, to converse and catch up since they had not seen each other in a while. At around 3:15 a.m., the men noticed an unmarked police car drive by slowly before driving away. The men sat in the car for a while longer, conversing before Khan drove off with them toward his home in St. Albans, Queens. And a Black Star filling in the details. He was eventually pulled over by the same unmarked police car they had spotted earlier. The cops who pulled him over were not in uniform, nor did they identify themselves. I mean, that could have been a carjacking. I would have thought, am I being jacked? You're not identifying yourself. Unmarked vehicle, not in uniform. Said, take whatever you want. Just don't kill me. I mean, that's what I would have said. That's according to the lawsuit, but the main cop doing the talking was later identified as Besson. Soon as he saw the lights behind him, Khan removed the gun from his holster, placed it in a glove compartment, then placed his hands on the steering wheel. Sounds like a black man in America. What we're taught to do. But Besson ordered the men out of the car and began searching it without consent or probable cause, the lawsuit states. The cops searched the car for 30 minutes before handcuffing the men and transporting them to jail. What did they do? Even though the concealed weapons permit had been issued to him by the New York City Police Department, which could have been quickly confirmed in its database, it still took prosecutors another 3 months before dismissing the charges against the 40-year-old veteran. Because that's how we're living. Take my time. Took me a split second to arrest you, but I'm gonna take my time. Could have found out immediately. He's allowed to have this weapon. Decorated 40-year-old veteran. But even after the charges were dismissed, the NYPD still refused to return his firearm on the basis that the case was still under investigation. Now, this is the dirty part. And it's not even a mistake. You didn't make a mistake. You profiled these men who were just celebrating mom's birthday. She recently passed away. Now, Rafiq Khan is suing the NYPD for racial profiling, malicious prosecution, false arrest, and imprisonment, conspiracy, and violating his Second Amendment right to bear arms, according to the lawsuit obtained by Atlanta Black Star. Khan, in fact, is employed as an armed federal environment protection specialist for the Department of Interior, assigned to Fort Wadsworth, a former military base on Staten Island that the National Park Service is now using. Prior to accepting the job, he had applied for the NYPD and had even passed the entrance exam. NYPD would have been better off for it. Sounds like he would have been an excellent candidate. Meanwhile, the main cop who arrested him, Matthew S. Besson, has had 36 complaints filed against him over the past 5 years since joining the NYPD, mostly from Black people who have accused him of excessive force, improper use of body camera, failure to identify himself, and discourtesy. You know, I want to change my mind. This decorated 40-year-old Black man, this veteran, would not have been a good candidate for the NYPD. I don't think he would have fit in very well. Only 8 of those complaints have been substantiated. That doesn't mean that he didn't do more. And by now we know that. I'm just clarifying. Only 8 substantiated. Significant. That's significant, considering how many complaints against police are determined by internal affairs to be unsubstantiated. Usually they said nothing happened. You didn't see what you saw, and we don't know anything about the bruises on you. Besson is also listed as a defendant in 2 prior lawsuits that remain pending. If that officer was in the military, he would have already been discharged for dishonorable conduct, Khan said. But do you see the veteran Khan, Rafiq Khan? They're not playing by what would be your rules. In the civilian world, and we know really aspects of the military, but let's stick with the civilian world, Woes. This is what you do. I think what happened was criminal. I'm all for the lawsuit, which once again, isn't New York taxed enough? If you live in New York, raise your hand if you're taxed enough. And now you're gonna have to pay another lawsuit because this is what it is. And every bit of what he's alleged, if this went down like this, it happened. And we know he has a leg up in his right Woes because they dropped the charges, but they won't give him back his gun. I think he should add theft to the lawsuit. But I think this officer should be, yes, fired, of course, but I think charged. What are you conspiring? What are you doing here? Your turn.
So those of our listeners who don't live in New York and have never lived in New York City specifically has some of the strictest gun laws in our nation, meaning Possession of an illegal firearm is punishable by 2 years in prison off the bat. Your first freaking offense, you're going to jail for 2 years. How you know that's true? Plaxico Barris, a freaking New York Giant, actual football player, shot himself like a dummy. But what he ended up going to jail for was illegal possession of a firearm. They were like, we don't care that you're licensed to carry this in Virginia. You're going to jail. They found the gun on Lil Wayne's tour bus. Okay, nobody else from his crew claimed it. They put it on Lil Wayne. He went to jail for two years for illegal possession of a firearm. I mentioned those two people because those are privileged, rich, moneyed people. They tend to get away with stuff when they could pay their way out of the situation. These guys have paper, and they themselves still had to serve 2 years in prison for gun possession. So that's just so y'all know how New York gets down with guns. The fact that this guy had the charges dropped and there's no case against him is all you need to know. It's open and shut when you have an illegal gun. So the fact that he's gotten off shows you that he had it legally, and the way that they carried this is just typical NYPD BS. It's like, you know what? We were wrong, but we're still gonna take this to the furthest extent and make your life as difficult as possible behind this because we're NYPD, we don't admit to wrongdoing, no matter what. And that's been their arrogant ways since probably the inception of the damn department. I know it's been that way in my entire lifetime. So nobody should be surprised that they're behaving this arrogantly and borderline, harassing this dude. This is how the NYPD gets down.
That's how they get down. And there needs to be accountability. They're not going to find it. Not with the New York mayor, Eric Adams, former police officer who says he was beaten badly as a kid, young man, maybe a teenager, beaten badly by police. So he wanted to join them and do the right thing. Under Mayor Adams, NYPD commissioner, who he said just the other day he has full confidence in, the one that's overruling all of the recommendations from the board, who says this person should be charged with a crime. This officer did a lot of abuse here. Commissioner overrules it. Eric Adams, I have full confidence in, I can't do the New York accent, Woes, but yeah, he's supporting these people.
You can't do the New York accent?
I used to be able to. I love it, though. I love a New York accent. Okay, it's just sick. But we're going to move on.
It's awful.
It's awful. We might as well call this Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Cops Edition. Because here we are again. Hawaii now. Black cop belittled and racially bullied by colleagues. Your colleagues who are supposed to have your back, help keep you safe, they're the ones doing this. Give you the details. Hawaii Department of Law Enforcement investigating multiple cases of alleged harassment involving racism and treachery within its own ranks, which targeted a Black officer and led to the recent arrest of 4 sheriff's deputies. Another 9 officers have been placed on paid administration leave. They could face further discipline. The alleged incidents involve repeated harassment, racially insensitive comments made during field exercises, where Martin Horton, an officer in training, was subjected to insults about his supposed preference for fried chicken, among other verbal abuse. You ought to be, are you for real? All these people leave and suspended and what? Chicken? Newsflash, you like chicken too. Scandal came to light in late June as authorities announced the arrest of Deputy Sheriff William Keel for reckless endangering and harassment. Sergeant Eric Matamara, Deputy Sheriff Alvin Turla, who are both supervisors for harassment related to racial misconduct. Deputy Sheriff William Gary for additional harassment charges. The department did not provide detailed explanations of the charges, but internal sources indicated the allegations are all related to racial harassment during shift briefings and other official police activities. Now, one of them looks like he wishes he was not with the others. You decide which one I'm talking about, but one of them looks like, damn, I messed up. Anyway, the harassment charge each defendant faces is a misdemeanor. I hate that. The department withheld the names of the 9 officers placed on leave. That's not okay. While the department's criminal investigations division continues its probe. If only they would leave out the names of the accused, people they arrested who weren't yet adjudicated. That would be great, but that's not what they're doing. I want all the names. The arrests were made as part of a separate criminal investigation, but are inextricably linked by the overarching culture of harassment within the department, report said. Horton, who came forward with the allegation, said his colleagues began targeting him shortly after his graduation from the academy last December, when he was assigned to the detail at the state capitol, and a black star with the details. He accused Turla, his supervisor, of making degrading remarks toward him during his first shift at the Capitol in December 2023. It was a sexual comment about my lips that he made not just once, but at least twice, Horton said. Bristling from the disrespect, Horton reported the incident to Sergeant Mitamura, whose response shocked him even more. His comment to me was that you're nothing. You're no one, Horton said. He valued me, and as a trainee, he was my sergeant. I accepted it. Keel, who was assigned to the airport division, allegedly put Horton's life at risk by ordering the man to rush into traffic at Daniel K. Inouye International Airport to stop a moving vehicle while on foot, violating safety policies. Sources indicated that non-black trainees never received orders like this. Horton, a disabled Navy veteran who grew up in Alabama and lived in Hawaii for 3 decades, said he remained silent about his concerns until the Criminal Investigations Division interviewed him in March about his experience so far at the Capitol. Horton said he was surprised by the intensity of the department's response, which has put him at odds with fellow officers, with Horton's family living in fear of retaliation. Horton is currently being provided extra protection for he and his family. That right there, Woz says it all. This is a police department in Hawaii, and when one relatively new member describes in painful detail what's going on, and they start putting people on administrative leave, some supervisors, they have to protect this whistleblower. And you want to talk about you collectively, America, how hard police have it? One police officer in this case has it extremely hard. And apparently, the department knows that there is a danger, a threat from the others. What say you?
And we've all watched mob movies, and they glorify this whole, rule of omerta, AKA silence. And, breaking that rule is punishable by what? Death. I don't see any material difference between these cops and their insistence that nobody ever steps up and speaks out against injustices happening within the PD. That's no different than a gang. The fact that this guy has to have round-the-clock protection, this is like witness protection. This is what the law usually does for witnesses when they're prosecuting criminals, guys. And so the idea that this guy needs protection from the police who he's informing on, it just shows you the culture within that department, where you're not allowed to speak even when you're experiencing the most egregious transgressions. Like, this is classic workplace harassment, sexual harassment. I don't care if you're working at the Burger King, you gotta read the goddamn, harassment manual in the company rule book. Like, every single job has this. And these guys clearly violated that. And, it's ridiculous. They're cops.
They're cops. And you're right. And I'll take a triple Whopper with cheese. Yes, at Burger King, you have to read. You can't just know how to make that Whopper perfectly. It better be perfect. You have to know the policies of Burger King. And the fact that people are in danger here makes me want to know the names even more. Administrative leave. So does that mean they're out amongst the public, these potentially dangerous people? Outrageous. Let's go over to ESPN. ESPN's Malika Andrews reveals trauma she suffered as a teenager. What went on here? I'll tell you. According to People magazine, NBA Countdown host Malika Andrews reveals she was sent to some infamous residential treatment programs for 3 years when she was a teen. Today, she still struggles with mental illness. Andrews grew up in Oakland, California. Her sister, Kendra, also an ESPN reporter. Parents, Mike, a personal trainer, and Karen, an artist. Biracial kid, Andrews stuck out like a sore thumb in her predominantly white private school where she was well-liked and a strong student. However, by the age of 12, she started lashing out. She showed signs of a disordered eating. I remember going to a lunch one time with a bunch of girlfriends and chewing up a hamburger and spitting it into a napkin. She says, one of my girlfriend's moms was there and asked me if I didn't like my food. I was so mortified that someone saw me. That was sort of the beginning of what's been now a decades-long battle with food and body image for me. By 8th grade, she was in therapy for depression, but she was failing classes, didn't seem to care. She wasn't invited back to a rigorous K-12 school. Then in March 2009, after a violent argument with a friend, Andrews admitted to her mom she'd considered self-harm. I was crying and said, I know I need help. The therapist told her parents to take Malika to the ER, where she was placed in a psychiatric hold. We were confused and scared, says Karen, age 63. I don't think any of us understood the journey our family was embarking on. It was hellacious. Again, People magazine. It would be more than 3 years before Malika moved back home. It was like having our familial heart ripped from our body, says Karen. Felt wrong living a life without our core four. It was a life of disequilibrium. When insurance ran out, she was moved to an eating disorder program, but they told me they weren't equipped to deal with all the stuff I had going on. Malika's parents were on the brink of a breakdown, says Karen. Malika was not safe at home. What were we to do? An educational consultant suggested Wingate Wilderness, a therapy program in Utah that has since gone out of business. Wilderness was a hard sell, says Karen, but Mike is a mountain man. Whether on a dirt bike, mountain bike, or skis, he finds inner peace in the backcountry. We were afraid, but wanted our daughter back. Wingate was a leap of faith. Because Malika's parents knew how emotional taking her away would be for everyone, the consultant recommended they hire transporters to bring her to Wingate. The pair accompanied her on a flight to Las Vegas and then a 4-hour drive into the Kanab Desert. Spent 11 weeks in the desert with other troubled teens, hiking up to 12 miles per day with a 50-pound pack, building fire, shelter. They give you 1 roll of toilet paper and like 10 tampons, she says. If she wasn't able to build a fire, she didn't eat hot food. When she went to the bathroom, she had to count to prove she wasn't making a run for it. At night, her shoes were taken away, but throughout the ordeal, she'd find sharp rocks and continue to cut. And when it was over, her problems hadn't gone away. Instead of returning home, she was moved into an all-girls residential treatment center in Utah, where she lived for nearly 2 years under strict supervision. If you did positive things, you earn positive points. If you do bad things, you earn negative points. If you leave your sock out in the morning, room checks, you get 2,000 negative points. There was a family teacher who infamously would get down on her hands and knees to check after you mop or sweep. And if she found more than 6 spots of dust, then you earned 2,000 negatives, not doing your chore well enough. She could lose privileges like calling home if her negative points were too high. And when she could call her parents, her calls were monitored, and she was forbidden from saying she wanted to go home. And that very controlling environment, purging, started to really pop up again for me. Cutting was something that would come up, Andrews says, and I ran away once, but I didn't get far. The teachers ran right after me. Andrews says she was never abused in treatment, but the tactics left a mark. For years, she wouldn't wear the color orange because in one institution, when you got in trouble, you wear an orange shirt. So people knew not to talk to you, says Andrews. I was a lost kid, but I wasn't a bad kid. Little me didn't deserve that. I did deserve help. Of her parents' decision, she says, I have the best parents in the world. They did all they could to help me. There's no bigger support system. One rare source of happiness in those years was the time she was able to spend with horses. At the final residential treatment school in Utah, where she lived for more than a year, she was granted off-campus privileges to take riding lessons. She met a horse named Dante. I started working with him and I fell in love. Suddenly, I had something to pour joy into, says Andrews, who later brought Dante home to California, where she rode him until college, when she gave him to two close friends. A few years ago, Andrews's fiance gifted her with riding lessons. I believed I didn't have time or space in my life for it anymore, she says, but he helped me prioritize riding again. Horses have been my bright spot. After she finally returned home, August 2012, she had missed many of the normal rites of passage for teens. You know how much life happens in 4 years between 14 and 18? I felt like the world had moved on without me, she says. Andrews found her passion studying journalism at the University of Portland and becoming editor of the school paper. Writing and sharing other people's stories is something I found a lot of purpose in when I went to college, she says. However, before she graduated in 2017, she relapsed with her eating disorder. She lost 40 pounds after purging multiple times a day and ended up with an irregular EKG. I want you to understand that thousands of children were sent to these infamous programs, including Paris Hilton. She's talked about it. She's testified about it. Listen.
When I was 16 years old, I was ripped from my bed in the middle of the night and transported across state lines to the first of 4 youth residential treatment facilities. These programs promised healing, growth, and support, but instead did not allow me to speak, move freely, or even look out a window for 2 years. I was force-fed medications and sexually abused by the staff. I was violently restrained and dragged down hallways, stripped naked, and thrown into solitary confinement. My parents were completely deceived, lied to, and manipulated by this for-profit industry about the inhumane treatment I was experiencing. So can you only imagine the experience for youth who are placed by the state and don't have people regularly checking in on them? I attended facilities with foster and adopted youth, and I heard their testimony that they feel like they were forgotten, being shipped from facility to facility their whole childhoods. Today, residential facilities are continuing to warehouse over 50,000 foster youth and unknown number of adopted youth in lockdown facilities. Innocent kids who have not committed crimes, kids whose parents didn't have resources to support them, kids whose parents passed away, kids who have already experienced trauma. This $23 billion a year industry sees this population as dollar signs and operates without meaningful oversight.
So it happened to a rich socialite with a famous last name too. Happened to Paris Hilton too. Malika Andrews, countless others. She called it a for-profit, rich industry. Insurance. So this is what unsuspecting parents, and I believe Malika Andrews, she knows her parents. She has a relationship with them. Paris Hilton too. They had no idea this was going on. What should be done here? I commend both for telling their story. I had no idea these places existed. Other parents need perhaps this warning too.
Yeah, I think we just need to spread the message far and wide about what really happens at these institutions. I think they prey upon parents because obviously every parent wants the best for their kid, and they promise them these like miracle results. And I think everybody needs to understand there's no such thing as miracles. Not when it comes to raising a child. If a child is having problems, these are things that need to be worked through. It's not going to be fixed up by some freaking boot camp for however many years you want to send them. Like that's not how real life works. And so I think the message gets out that these places don't actually work and they're stealing your money essentially and abusing your children and sending them back worse than they found them. Then, less people will give these people money and eventually, hopefully they'll go out of business.
I think they need to. And it's sad and it's tragic and it has caused at least these two public women that we know about enormous trauma that they are still experiencing today. Kudos to them for figuring out how to right the ship and navigate their mental health after this. But I'd like for more of these stories to be told. People magazine's a tabloid, tell sensational stories sometimes, exclusives about the housewives. This is, I think, a service. I really do. We're going to stay with ESPN woes. Stephen A. Smith, probably your favorite. I like Stephen A., but I mean, he's just, the mouth. But hey, he earns a lot for it. Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe's drama with ESPN staff. According to Atlanta Black Star, new report claims members of Stephen A. Smith's production team on ESPN's First Take are considering ditching the show, and the host's salary demands are playing a huge part in their decision. U.S. Sun tabloid reports the two unnamed production team members say that Stephen A. Smith's salary demands are causing major tension among ESPN's First Take crew. Gossip outlet claims they say Smith's push for a big new contract, along with co-host Shannon Sharpe's behavior, has led to a stressful work environment. It looks like they're color coordinated, both custom. They can afford it. Private jets. Smith's current contract runs until 2025. He's reportedly asking for about $25 million per year, which could then make him ESPN's highest paid analyst. This demand, along with the attitudes of both Smith and Sharpe, has created significant friction. The report claims Smith is rumored to have rejected the network's initial 5-year, $90 million offer, holding out for an additional $7 million so that he might make more than Monday Night Football analysts Troy Aikman and Joe Buck make. This has upset many behind the scenes. Sharpe, the 3-time Super Bowl champ who joined the show last August after leaving Fox, recently secured a new multi-year contract with ESPN. He publicly thanked Smith on air for his support during a tough time. However, the new report claims staff feel overlooked by Smith and Sharpe, and the recent on-screen treatment of new Lakers head coach J.J. Redick has added to the discontent. It's frustrating for all of us who work our blanks off. The Sun reports it was told by a purported insider. Stephen and Shannon think that the show is them and nobody else is as important. Smith and Sharpe are doing whatever they want, said an anonymous staffer who added that the pair, I'm laughing too, and I'm getting ready to get to it. Now, you done got me messed up with this. Okay, insider. All right. The anonymous staffer who added that the pair have created a 2-man band against the world dynamic in the workplace. They created it. Source added Shannon has had his extension deal and it's good for him, but you can really see that both of them care about their deals more than about their coworkers and colleagues. Situation has to change soon, or it will turn into an impossible situation to deal with. I used to enjoy going to work, but right now I wake up in the morning not wanting to go in. It's pretty much Team Smith and Sharpe against everybody else. Another insider who said to work as a journalist on the show revealed to The Sun that some of their colleagues have already begun looking for other jobs after voicing their complaints to the board to no avail. Many people are looking for jobs elsewhere or on different shows. The work vibe isn't the best, they revealed. ESPN and First Take have not commented on the recent rumblings. I should give you first crack at it, but you know what I say, ladies first. Okay. Smith and Sharpe are two big mouths, and their combo here is ratings gold. This is a free market. Insiders are upset because, get out of here. What McAfee get? Buck and Aikman? Why shouldn't these two brothers demand more money? This is jealousy. This is, I believe, anti-Black, maybe anti-Black big mouth brothers on a show together. Get out of here with this whining and complaining. Do you know the history of ESPN? Really? The misogyny, the sexism. I'm not saying that they're beyond reproach, but really? A brother asking for his market value? That's supposed to be some kind of crime? I would go get you another job. Somebody else is going to slide right in there. Am I wrong, Woes? Am I being too harsh?
I don't think so. I can't even imagine what somebody on the production team could think that they have to do with Stephen A's contract. Like Stephen A's contract is happening on literally the highest level of
Thank
the
you,
company.
Karen. You're being a Karen, mind your business.
It's insane to think that these kinds of things concern you. Now, if Stephen A or Shannon Sharpe are conducting themselves in an unprofessional manner or like harassing people or berating people or doing stuff that's
Worse than their
against
colleagues?
actually like that's against actual workplace structures, then all right, cool, you might have a gripe, but like they're too concerned about their financials. That's insane. That's just a ridiculous thing to say. And full disclosure for the audience, like I have friends who work with Stephen A. They have nothing but great things to say. I don't personally know Stephen A. I've met him a couple of times. He's always been really gracious, but his reputation, honestly, is of somebody who sticks his neck out for people on the job, like helps people out, like especially fellow talent, especially fellow Black talent. I like that's all I've ever heard about Stephen A. So I can't speak to none of this.
Look, man, and all these anonymous sources as a journalist get me, well, it gets me going. Okay, I have my spidey sense. You're in the middle of a contract negotiation. Sometimes powerful entities are behind leaking stories. Don Lemon, somebody wanted him out at CNN, and all of a sudden, the floodgates, it was crazy. All these inside accounts, and didn't nobody but CNN do that to try to make a public case to get rid of that brother? Maybe, I'm just saying. Stranger things have happened, Woes. I'll give you the last word, but I think it's a possibility, just one woman's opinion, that nobody on the production team said this. ESPN, they leaked it to try to bring this brother down a peg or two.
I tend to not think it's the ESPN brass, because when they do leaks, it's a lot nastier than this. Like it would have been actually like some salacious, some stuff that would have made it say, damn, this seems like small potatoes. That's why I assume it might be
installment one.
So maybe there's more coming. You're right. Maybe there's more coming behind this. But this one seems like, quite small potatoes. Because when they were mad at McAfee the other day, when he was like beefing with the Norby guy over there, they put some of his dirty laundry out there, in the media. So this seems like this wasn't that. Not yet anyway, but let's stay tuned.
Shots fired, I say. And we'll be back on together at some point. And I'm not messy like that. I probably will say I told you so. I probably will say I told you so, because that's how we do it, and it's coming.
You would never be messy, Sharon. No,
I sure would.
Nobody can see that. Come
because
on.
I'm not fitting to argue with you again and again, Kenya and Sheree. I just leave the show. I'm gonna tell you off and leave the show. I'm not gonna put up with this, but it's entertaining. Woes, remind us where we can see your good work.
Of course, check us out at theringer.com. We'll be covering all kinds of stuff this summer, from pop culture to sports. And check me out wherever you get your social media, Big Woz, BIGWOS, every single place.
And how much did that work of art, it's an original, behind you? I'm sure it is.
Probably worth about $50, Sharon. if you could spare it, it's probably about a solid $50.
You're not even going to get it appraised. You got
that's a night at the movies with you and a date, barely. Honestly,
yeah, I don't know if you can bring the date, but I'll get me a jumbo popcorn and refillable drink. All right, Wosny, Lambre, we appreciate you always. Thank you for the insight, the incredible commentary, and we'll look for you. I'm Sharon Reed in for Dr. Rashad Ritchie alongside Woes today. Thanks, Doc, for letting us fill in. We hope you'll join us again.